Thank you, Cheryl. Hi, I'm Soleil Tranquilli of Tranquil Gardens, and my partners are Cheryl Buckwalter of Landscape Liaisons, fabulous educator and designer. And you will also be enjoying this webinar brainchild by my friend Marcia Scott of Marcia Scott Landscape Design. She is not only a designer with decades of experience, but also an arborist, experienced arborist. So enjoy, everyone. Let's get started.
Hi, welcome to this webinar. I'm Marcia. Today, you're going to learn some quick highlights about growing trees, what you need to know about how to select, purchase, plant, and care for healthy trees in this valley. You'll learn a few effective watering and pruning strategies also for your young trees. So, trees are amazing. But first, let me explain my passion. Trees provide beauty, a sense of place, shade and wind protection, wildlife value, sequester carbon and clean the air, and I could go on and on and on. But let's just state the obvious. They provide shade, 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 and cooling. So don't be afraid of planting some future. Trees are not things to be feared, but instead enjoyed and looked forward to. And Soleil is going to just go over some ways to select your tree. Soleil?
All right. Well, this is just a little bit of a highlight here for you to look at some tree forms. It's just to give your brain a rest for a minute before we dive into the nitty-gritty, high information part of our webinar. These are cypress trees in a Mediterranean-style garden. And on the right, we have the Bubba Desert Willow. It's a fast-growing tree with colorful blooms. Next up, we have native oaks, providing a lovely grounding winter structure in the landscape. And on the right, just in time for 4th of July, we have the dynamite crepe myrtle. Great color there. And last, but certainly not least, we have our native California buckeye, whose spring blooms are just absolutely spectacular along the foothills. And there you see some mature crepe myrtles giving some shade to a side yard. Next up, I want to share some wonderful resources with you. We're not going to go through them today, but these resources will be on the webinar for you to watch later. And they will also be on the Citrus Heights Water District website for you to follow up. Lots of great information on how to pick your tree and what to do with it. All right, Marcia.
So it's shopping day. Let's assume you know what type of tree you want, which is quite an accomplishment. Kudos to you. So today is shopping day. We're on our way to the garden center. You will have the happiest trees if you start with smaller container sizes. We recommend 5 to 15 gallon container size. Those smaller trees are healthier to start with and quickly will catch up and surpass the growth of trees in larger containers. Soleil, Cheryl, and I have all watched that happen. So once you get to the nursery, you're going to want to look at the trees and they're going to be right in your face, but you want to walk up and look at the roots. Trees are all about roots. Here are some tree problems that are detectable in containers. In the middle photo, the roots with bad structure. We all can see that, right? That's usually caused from no root corrections when sizing up in pots. They start these guys in little tiny 4-inch pots and they go to 1 gallon, then 5, and this is a 15 gallon here. The side photos both indicate surfacing roots. And in young trees, this is caused by burying the tree too deeply. Those tiny fiber roots indicate a problem, and they're not important to the tree at all. They could lead to failure from girdling at about the 10-year point in the tree's life. You can dig down to find the tree flare, but better just avoid that tree. You can correct these root problems with root pruning or choose a healthier tree to start with. Things to watch out for. Remember I talked about burying that tree. You want to be able to see a root flare. All trees have a root flare, some sort of flare right before they enter the soil. And if you don't see one, that tree's probably buried too deeply. Failure, death issues are later in life. Flare is a good thing. You want to always see it. The middle picture showing you some burlap. Burlap is not inherently a bad thing. A lot of trees are field grown and then burlap's put around the soil to transport them, and then they're put in a pot. But you want to pull that burlap away from that root crown, where the crown is where the trunk and the soil meet, because if you hold moisture there, it encourages rot, and that's holding up your tree. You do not want rot right there. And lastly, you're going to watch out for trunk wounds. Bark wounds are not great purchases. They're not always a bad thing, but they can indicate other problematic issues. And then here's a good looking trees. The roots on the left side, that's a wonderful look. Okay, that's what you want to see. See that tiny little flare? And on the right, look at those Palo Verde trees. Most people would think, oh, those are just way too small. You know what? Those are the perfect size of tree. They are going to grow they're ready to grow. You don't want anything big. It's going to, for its can size, it's going to suffer a lot of transplant shock. Again, bigger is not better in containerized plants. Now you purchased your tree and it's time to a new home day for your tree. So we're going to plant it. So here's a picture of this is not a dead tree. Sorry, I forgot to put the leaves on it. But you want to dig wider holes, not deeper. I want to emphasize wider holes, not deeper, because that tree could settle down and bury that crown. You don't want that to happen. You're going to dig nice wide holes. Those roots don't need a big deep hole. And plant it grade or a bit high. You want to choose your backfill that is 100% existing soil. If you need to improve soil, do so in a larger planting area by adding compost to the soil surface and maybe tilling it in or digging it in. Don't add a different soil to the backfill. It takes in water differently. You want the same stuff to go back in the hole that came out of the hole. Finally, if you're hand watering, create a berm around the tree that can be knocked down in winter. And then before, during, and after your planting, you're going to water. You're going to water it when it's in the container, water it when you're backfilling and maybe in layers. And then after you're planting, the whole time you're going to trickle water this thing. Water's a really big deal. And finally, staking your young tree after planting is essential. First, you want to remove that stake included from the nursery. And this diagram shows one style of staking. There's lots of different styles, but this one is one style. The stake that comes in the nursery is the only kind of stake they can put in. That protects it during transportation. But if you leave it on there, it's going to wound the tree. You want to get it off. You'll need 2 stakes, and they can be lodge poles, T-posts, even pipe, rebar, bamboo stakes. You get the picture. Your goal here is not to make the tree rigid, but to protect it from snapping off in high winds and from physical outside damage, like kids or cars, all that stuff. You want the tree to be able to move a little bit so it could get strong. So you're going to use flexible ties, okay, like rubber ties or pieces of drip tubing, something that flexes a little bit. And then the stakes are temporary. Please remove them after a few years. We've all seen trees where the stakes are being pulled up by the tree. That's way too long. You want to get the stakes out of the way so they don't wound the tree. And your soil nurtures your baby tree, and Soleil is going to tell us all about that.
Thanks, Marcia. I just want to point out that Marcia even drew you guys those pictures. They're so awesome. I love that. So as Marcia was saying, trees are all about the roots. And if that's the truth, then if you care for your soil, then caring for your soil is care for those lovely trees. So let's talk about 2 little easy secrets. It's the lazy gardener's strategy. Number 1 is compost. You're in on the secret now. 1 inch of compost on top of your soil will give you a nutrient of slow food. That's a drip feed of nutrients into the soil. Root systems thrive in composted soils. You just need 1 inch over the top. Literally just lay it over the top. So lazy, all right? Over time, those soils become nutrient-rich sponges, and those nutrient-rich sponges will support your healthy root system of your tree. 1 inch on top, that's all you need. Next secret I have for you today. Why do I get the lazy gardener stuff? What is that saying? Well, I guess I am the lazy gardener expert. 4 inches of mulch over the top of your compost. And that is your very best friend and valuable ally. You don't need to change the soil grade or anything. Just keep that mulch and that compost off the edge of the tree bark. And you can think of the mulch as a blanket holding that fine compost in place. It's a blanket for the tree roots, protecting it from the elements, from the heat, from the cold, from water and wind, all right? It's holding the moisture in just enough for the roots to use, but it's just 4 inches of mulch. It's that simple, all right? Next up, I'm sure you have questions. We want to hear them, so enter those into the chat below and we will circle back around to those. Oh yes, I get to share about watering your tree. Sorry, I forgot about that. So, as designers, we get asked all the time, how much should I water? When do I water? Well, here's what you need to know. It's pretty simple. See the green flashing line? That's about 18 inches deep into the soil. That's where 90% of your roots are. That's where the water needs to go. Not much deeper, but notice how the roots spread out. So at first, when you have a brand new tree, Marcia wants you to roughly, this is a rough rule, water several times weekly. In the summer, that's about 4 gallons per inch of trunk size, twice a week. Or that works out to about 7 gallons weekly for a 5-gallon tree and 16 gallons for a 15-gallon tree, for those of you who just went and got trees. All right, it's a tough time to plant in 100-degree weather, but if you just hang on a little bit, they'll have a cooling trend. Then after the trees have been in the ground for a season or two and you're properly watering them, you're going to pull back and you're going to water deeply and infrequently. Trees do have deeper root systems than most plants, but still just that top 18 inches or half a meter. All right. Anything more than that, it's not helping. It's just going to be runoff. All right. And let's show you one way to organize your thoughts around your irrigation system for your trees. Trees need a little different irrigation than lawn and perennials and small shrubs. These are drip emitters. You can see the little dots on the lines. This is inline drip. And we're just showing you how as the tree grows outwards, the end of the drip line of the tree canopy, that's where you want to water to. So you want to encourage the roots to go outward. Here's another way to think of it, another visual for you. It's a tree irrigation ring with our friend JP standing there. And this is how he would lay that out. That is a fake tree, but that's okay. It's showing you how it works. All right, yikes. Please don't water your tree bark. Your tree needs to be watered at the root system and not on its bark. Please avoid or adjust your irrigation if this is a situation that you have, because whilst there are some trees that are tolerant of this, most of them, you can kill them in even less than a year. And that's very sad. You are creating a situation for crown rot. And remember the crown, which is the interface between the top and the bottom of the roots. That's what holds the tree up. So we really want to protect our tree structure. Here's runoff. Oh my gosh, so sad. This runoff water did not help these trees or lawn at all. None of the landscape really benefited. It's extra water. It could even create plant death and disease. So remember, gutters are for storm water, not irrigation runoff, all right? And we're just reminding you that good watering habits creates strong, healthy root systems, healthier soils, healthier trees, all right? So we get asked all the time, how do I know if it's time to water? How do I know? We just shared with you a little bit about how much to water, but when to water. Well, every situation is going to be different, so we can't tell you that unless we're standing next to you in the garden. So what you're going to do is you're going to use a really low-tech way to check your soil moisture. It's so easy. No fancy gadgets are needed. You can even teach your kids how to do this, all right? Your little gardeners in training. All you're going to do is you're just going to grab a hand trowel or a shovel and just insert it into the soil 2 to 3 inches down and just pull it back so a little slot is created that you can slide your fingers into. It's just opening up a little spot, and you can just feel with your bare fingers the soil. Is it dry or moist? Dry soil feels warm to the touch or neutral, and you should be thinking about watering if the soil is that dry. It might even be hard to get that piece of equipment into the ground. If the soil is moist, it will feel slightly cool to the touch, and that means moisture is available to the roots. Low tech, your moisture sensor is literally attached at the end of your arm. Ta-da!
We're going to talk about pruning these young trees a little bit. This might surprise you. Baby trees are not supposed to look like adult trees. That's like expecting a toddler to look like a grown-up. We want to prune them to promote healthy future growth, not to create an adult tree look. Here's some examples of some young trees. On the left, there's a tree with what we call a skirt, the lower branches on the tree, left on, as opposed to the little guy on the right. At the nursery, they pruned all those off. You actually need, in young trees, you need these lower branches. You can remove them later when they're about 3/4 of an inch around, but what they do for the tree is those leaves are food factories for the tree, but also they help the trunk size up faster. They help that trunk get fatter, quicker. And remember we talk about staking and stuff? The tree is a healthier, stronger tree with a good trunk. On the right, those Palo Verde trees again, they have some really nice, fancy skirts on them. Next, we're going to prune for good structure. This is likely the only pruning your young tree will need. The strongest form for most trees is a central leader, that pink line, one boss. That doesn't mean there aren't lots of trees out there that have multiple leaders, but statistics show that trunks and large branch failures are much more infrequent when young trees are trained to a central leader. Some branches will only need to be reduced. That's shortened. There you go. Not removed. Because like I said, those leaves are food factories for the tree. And make sure there's enough room around the trunk for the major branches to grow. Remember, they do not move up or down. They just grow wider. So wherever it is right now when you bought it, it's going to stay in that place. It's not going to move up or down. If you have any questions about any of this, could you please enter them into the chat? Finally, we're just going to watch our trees grow. Your new tree is a living thing, so you have to nurture it. It has a good start. You chose it well and then planted it so it can thrive. You helped it stay strong by pruning for good structure and by giving it the correct amount of water, frequently at first, but not too much. Now you have to protect that baby. Stake it to protect it from wind and from kids, pets, bikes, cars, even deer. If you started your young tree in a healthy way, you can now watch it mature. I'll just remind you of some problems that seem really tiny in a young tree, but can prevent your tree from reaching old age. The top picture with the yellow arrows is an example of girdling roots that will be an issue, even fatal, later in this tree's life. Remember those earlier pictures on shopping day with the tiny roots we saw at the surface of those pots? They can lead to this girdling root problem. If it's correctable, at this point, you'll probably have to hire an arborist to do the work. And that's if it's correctable. The leaner tree on the bottom with the green dashed line, that guy could have been staked when he was young, but now there's nothing we can do about the lean, nothing. That weighs thousands of pounds, that tree. You can't correct it. And on the right with the red sun and the red arrows, that's indicating sunburn damage. And that could have been prevented when it was young, but now as an adult tree, it's just wounding the bark. Hopefully that tree can recover from the wounds on that bark before any kind of pathogen gets in. Soleil is going to walk you through some pictures of nice trees.
Thanks, Marcia. I love that part about the tree skirts. I learned so much from that piece. And it's kind of cute, tree skirts. Okay, we're going to leave you with some inspirational tree photos because we filled your brain with a lightning round of information. We crammed you full. So here are some backlit leaves of a forest pansy, eastern redbud, so pretty, and our native California western redbud in bloom. It's one of the best habitat plants there is. Here is a Bubba desert willow in bloom and a tupelo in fall color. And now it's the end. Let's do a recap with Marcia. Marcia, you are muted, Ma.
Thanks, Soleil. I appreciate it. Today we learned how to choose and purchase your best tree, and how to plant and stake your young tree, and how to care for your tree by smart watering and effective pruning strategies. And if you just have these little takeaways, you've got a great start. Lots of information in a very short amount of time.
So we are going to leave these resources, reminding you that they will be on the Citrus Heights Water District website for you. And we have just a couple of, we don't have time to run through them today, but they are fabulous. Please check them out. They will cover many of the things we talked about today and way more. So go check it out. Thanks, everybody.
So we just want you to know to plant some life, plant trees. Now you know how to do it. We're going to check your questions.
Great. So thank you very much. That was very informative. And we do have some good questions here for sure. When is the best time of year to plant my trees?
Well, around here it gets so very, very hot that the best time of year is the longest away from this hot summer, which would be late summer or early fall. Best time for trees. They get roots in all winter long, and then by the time they get to June to now, they've got 8 months worth of roots.
Okay, great. So let's see. We have a question here about the, I'm going through this. Oh, here we go. So there was a question about Citrus Heights Water District not having a cash for grass program, but Sacramento County doesn't accept customers from Citrus Heights Water District. I think, Rady, you answered that, but it might be a question to share with others about what the options are.
Yeah, unfortunately right now, as far as cash for grass programs, there's nothing offered that covers our service area. Basically, after the state ended their last cash for grass program last year, Sac County actually picked it up, but they only cover if you pay your bill to them. So we were mistakenly forwarding a lot of customers over to them, only to find out that they weren't eligible for it. So at this time, there's no cash for grass program offered.
But you have other good programs and offerings,
Definitely.
so that's really great. So here's a question, Soleil and Marcia, what is mulch? Bark?
Soleil will get that. She's our lazy soil person.
Well, we prefer mulch that is made from organic things, like shredded up trees, basically. And Marcia has brought forth some wonderful scientific studies where they found that arborists mulch is the best mulch. It's many different sizes and shapes, and fortunately, it's easy to get it for free. And we like using that because it'll break down and it'll also last a long time. Get that free arborist mulch.
Okay, great. Uh-oh, I just, can you all see my screen?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, it just went, it was very strange. It just, I had a little blip there or something. What's the optimal distance between trees?
Depends on the tree. So Cheryl, we got a prompt from in the chat from Brady saying that the Zoom webinar would cut off in 2 minutes, and that was a couple minutes ago. So maybe that's what happened.
Oh, yeah, perhaps so.
Yeah. So yeah, the distance happens to depend on what kind of trees. If you have a small tree, it's got to be a very minimum of 10 feet. And you might have a oak tree that gets really big, and the distance between trees might be 50 feet. So it really depends on your choice of tree.
Okay. All right. And yes, there will be a recording of the presentation. It will be up on the Citrus Heights Water District website that you can see here. It's chwd.org/community. Would you please repeat how much water to apply to a new tree and an established tree? Thank you.
So a new tree is gonna depend on the can size, depending on the can size. Like say you have a 5-gallon tree, it's probably gonna need water, when it's 110 out right now, like it is right now, it might need water 3 times a week, but usually twice a week. Which what you're gonna do is you're gonna go out and check. You actually literally have to check. I'm sorry, but I can't stress that enough. A mature tree shouldn't need any extra watering. Usually that's once or twice or 3 times or 4 times a month, but not more than that.
Okay, great. And we are running out of time here, so I'm going to go quickly, get to as many as we can. How do you prevent sunburn from a tree when it's young?
You paint it with half latex, half water, it's like sunscreen. That's the only thing you can do. Hey, I've had clients who've used shade screens in front of their trunks. All you have to do if you want to observe sunburn is walk around and look at bark on the sun side of a tree and you'll see it. Then it'll enter your brain.
Okay, and here's a question that maybe you can refer this participant to some resources, because they're asking what's the best way to take care of citrus trees and fruitless olives. How often do you water and fertilize? So do you have some resources perhaps?
The resources that we set up were on the slide.
Same ones? Okay.
Same ones.
All right.
And
Sunset Western Garden book as well.
Yeah, that's right. And what Soleil said about compost and mulch, that's no fooling. That would be my advice as an arborist. The first thing to take care of an alien or to add care for any kind of plant would be compost and mulch. It seems simple, but it's really important.
Okay. The Sacramento Tree Foundation says to only stake for 1 year. Is it okay to stake longer?
Yeah, so they say that because people want a definitive, like 1 year, 2, if your tree needs it, that's how long you stake it, as long as the tree needs it. But 1 year is pretty much the minimum. Some trees need a couple more years, like crepe myrtles.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Here's one question, and I think we're nearing the end here. Do mature trees need additional water on the 100-degree days that we have?
Yeah, it depends on how you're watering, but I would say also check your soil. They might be getting the water. The water might already be in the soil for them to get. If your soil has some dryness, yeah, they're transpiring faster, so they're going to need extra water.
All right. Well, I see we have more new messages that have come in. I will leave this up to Brady if you want us to continue to answer questions for a few minutes, or do we need to call this to a close?
We could probably call this to a close, but I would like to refer everyone to just give a quick call to our office where we can Here, I'll post the phone number one more time here.
And while you're doing that, free arborist mulch can often be obtained from tree companies. So if you need, if you see a truck from a tree company that's in your neighborhood, you can ask them if they can drop some mulch off for you. How's that?
I want to let
Does.
you guys know that you don't have to fear anything. Once that tree's been chipped, doesn't matter what kind of tree, what was wrong with it, that mulch is safe.
Great. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. Thank you, Marcia and Souley. So is there anything else to add, Brady?
Nope, I think you guys did a great job at covering everything as far as tree care. I think this was a great way to kick off as a entry-level class for that.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. Goodbye, everybody, and take care of those
Thank you so
trees.
much.
Thanks, Brady. Bye, everyone.